This is Dr. Maristani, and today we are going to talk about stem cells and rheumatoid arthritis. So today we have an excellent guest, Cheryl, who is here with us today to tell us her amazing story. Now, she's very educated and very experienced. She's a naturopathic doctor, so she got diagnosed with RA, I believe, about 42 years ago, and really had a different way of handling it in comparison to conventional therapies like biologics, like Humira and Enbrel. So she did a great job for years, and I'll let her tell her story until it somehow got bad, and then we had to do something very untraditional. But I'll let Cheryl introduce herself a little bit and tell us a little bit about what you went through.
So I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 32. I'm now 71. And I knew I did not want to go on traditional medication. So when the doctor said to me, "You have RA and you're going to end up in a wheelchair if you don't do something. You need to go on medication because your titers are very, very high." So I heard him say that, and I thought, well, I'm going to really try and do this naturally. So I started to study nutrition. And in studying nutrition, I learned about inflammatory foods. And I learned very quickly that there were certain foods that caused inflammation in my joints and in my feet, and my hands, called nightshades. And those nightshades were foods that would cause tremendous swelling. So I stopped nightshades and I went on an anti-inflammatory diet, looking at what foods was I sensitive to. I eliminated wheat. I eliminated dairy completely. And I found that if I wasn't stressed and if I got plenty of sleep and I drank lots of water, the RA would calm down. So I really, really wanted to figure out how to take care of RA naturally as much as possible.
And just to interject for a second, I think a lot of patients that I've spoken to that have successfully won the battle against RA, like you just said, they always have to go gluten-free and dairy-free. I feel like that's like the bare minimum requirement. But then you had another hurdle, making it even harder with the nightshades, because that's like potatoes, tomatoes. I mean, that's a lot of different things here now that you can't add to your diet. So your diet was pretty limited, and you did that for how long?
I did that for 30 years
And,
and
and it worked.
it worked. It worked. But the problem is, so many gluten free foods had potato starch in them, potato
Right.
flour. And so I became very creative in the kitchen.
Yep.
I started cooking and making treats and making recipes that did not include nightshades and were dairy free and gluten free until I heard about another opportunity, and that was stem cells. And I had really wanted to do stem cells. I knew that with RA, stem cells were very popular.
Yeah, and first of all, I have to commend you because you're like the 0.001% that could have done that diet for 30 years. Almost no one on earth has that type of willpower. And you're also a great cook. You make homemade honey, you have your own beef farm. I mean, you're very dedicated. You make homemade yogurt, homemade almond milk, homemade all sorts of milk. And so I'm always learning stuff from you, which is great, and trying to teach my wife. I'm like, hey, let's try to make something, really natural. My wife loves it too, but saying that it does take its toll and it's exhausting because even if you do it for 30 years, you could still have contaminated products in restaurants, and then all of a sudden you have a flare. And then what I think you told me, which was really interesting, was that since the pandemic, since COVID came around, it just got it even though you had done a great job, it started getting kind of uncontrolled, right? It started getting more painful. Like, from a scale of 1 to 10, one being you had no pain in your hands and your feet, for most of the 30 years, you were probably at a minimal, right? Minimal number,
Yes,
like
yes,
2 out of 10.
yes,
And then COVID came around and you told me you went to like an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10.
yeah,
And for the last couple of years, you've been really, really bad.
yes, so painful. My feet were awful. It was my toes wouldn't touch the ground. I had to find certain kind of shoes I could wear because my toes were like sticking up in the air from the RA, and my hands were starting to become deformed.
You're having the ulnar deviation, and I
Yeah,
remember the couple months before you got the stem cells, last time we had dinner, you had to excuse yourself from dinner because your hands were hurting so much.
yes,
And I remember you telling me stories that you couldn't open bottles because, so Bill, your husband, had to open all the bottles. And
yes,
and then, hold on. So then I say, Cheryl, there's a unique opportunity to get stem cells from one of my colleagues. You have to go outside the country. And you did it.
yes,
You did it, and a couple months ago, you tried it.
yep,
And I think you got like about 100 million, is that right?
yes.
Million cord stem cells. And what was the experience like while you got the stem cells? Like, was it painful? Was it weird? What was it like?
While I was getting the stem cells, it did not hurt. It seemed to go very, very quickly. And I thought, oh, is this really going to work? Is this really going to work? And within hours after the stem cells, I mean hours, the pain was gone. And it's been months and the pain is still gone in my hands and in my feet. It's like a miracle.
So your pain is 0 out of 10 right now?
It's 0 out of 10.
That's incredible. So we are going to do another follow-up with you because that's absolutely insane. But after having, RA for nearly 40 years and now you have no pain after one injection of stem cells months ago, wow. And the
Wow.
question is, how long does it last? Does it last 6 months? Does it last a year? And at the price point, can you do it every 6 months? Can you do it once a year? And to avoid biologics that have other side effects like lowering
Yeah.
your immune system. So I think it's wonderful. I think that's such a good story. I love the fact that you still feel good. And are you able to open cans now?
Well, it's much easier. It's
That's
definitely
huge.
much easier. I have strength in my wrist and in my hands that I didn't have. I have to rebuild them.
Any other benefits you got from stem cells outside of the hands or feet or
Yes, I was having problems with increased urination, and to such a point that it was hard for me to even make it to the bathroom without.
just like overactive bladder, which is very common.
Yes, and it
Yeah,
it completely took that away.
gone.
Completely. It is gone.
So
It's
that
like,
and that just goes to show you this is why I love functional medicine, that everything's connected. Because if you go to a urologist, they focus on the bladder. You go to a rheumatologist, they focus on the RA. But hey, the if the immune system is inflamed, that's probably causing your overactive bladder because the stem cells just turn the immune system down. They just
yes,
calm the immune system down. So,
yes.
I don't want to be too forward, but I think you could possibly have a little bit of some of those dairy or nightshades potentially and not have an RA flavor. Not that I want you to try it yet, but but you could get to a point that you are a little bit more tolerant now because your immune system doesn't react as much.
Right.
So, I think once you're like 3, 4, 5 months out, that's when they always say that about 3 months out from stem cells is when you get the best benefit. So if you ever want to try 3 or 4 months out, try a little bit of a nightshade just to experiment, like try a quarter of a tomato, just see
Right.
what happens. It'll be very interesting.
It would be very
But
interesting, and I might do that. I love that thought. Thank
but
you.
one step at a time. But thank you so much for telling us your story. It was great to
You're
have you
welcome.
here, and we'll definitely do a follow-up segment in the future.